Holy Week, holy questions. We started on Monday, Thursday with questions that the scriptures had prompted me to wrestle with at least this week. And the question this morning comes from our reading from Isaiah. On this mountain, the Lord of hosts will make for all peoples a rich feast of food and wine. The shroud of death will be swallowed up forever, and the tears are wiped away from every eye. It is a promise for the future, and it is seemingly far off, and so it caused me to ask the question, what are we aiming for in faith and in life? When I was in high school, my best friend and I went golfing, and generally golf courses like at least 4 people to be playing together, right, to keep people moving, and it was just he and I, so they paired us with this older gentleman, and on about the second hole, he said, "Can I ask you guys a question?" And we said, "Sure." And he said, "What do you think you're aiming at?" And we said, "Well, the flag at the hole right there." And he goes, "That's what you think you're aiming at. That's not what you're aiming at." And he went on to, and this is the thing, right? So you line up and you're trying to hit the ball that way. I also learned this lesson during the pandemic. We had a bunch of inch-thick pavers that we found all in our yard, and we decided to make them into a patio. So I had to dig like a 6-inch hole, but it had to be at a slope away from the house. And so if you're off by this much at the house, you're not off by that much when you get further out. So like if I point my arms to the corners right here, how far apart are my hands right here? A couple of feet, right? But if you follow those lines to the back of the sanctuary, much, much wider. So I dug a hole 6 inches here and 18 inches there and had to buy a lot of extra sand before we put in the rest of the patio. So when we were golfing, we thought we were aiming here, but even if you're off a little bit, 300 yards later, you are way, way off. And it turned out we were hitting the ball exactly where we were aiming it. We just didn't know where we were aiming because we didn't understand all of that physics just then. Now, it wasn't but a few years after that in life I generally thought I knew where I was aiming, but wasn't exactly sure where I was aiming. You see, I loved literature, and our culture does not encourage people to go study literature. I have a child that's studying literature, and what's the most frequent question I get? What's he going to do for a job? Everyone I know with a degree in English has a job, right? But that's not our cultural story. Our cultural story is you need to go get a job that's somehow related to science, technology, engineering, and math so you can go make money and be part of the cog of the economy. So when I was coming out of high school, I really wanted to study literature, but I said, no, you have to go make money. So what was I aiming at? Making money, right? And my dad had modeled for me that you could hate your job and still be happy at home. So it seemed perfectly reasonable to me to go to engineering school, which I did not want to do, because it would accomplish the goal of having a family and being able to pay for all the things a family needs to have. Did I know what I was aiming at? I thought I did until I got where I was aiming. And where I was aiming was I made plenty of money, but I was miserable at work, and I thought I could be happy at home, which kind of worked until my dad died at the age of 51, which proved that being miserable at work and happy at home maybe wasn't the best thing to aim for. But I hit what I was aiming at. It just wasn't, right, the life-giving thing that I thought it was going to be. And as we ask the question, what is it we're aiming for? If I actually think about most days I'm probably not aiming at much of anything, right? I get up and eat the same thing for breakfast every day and go through the same routines. You probably do too. There are plenty of days where I'm just happy to get to the end of the day, not having done much of what was on my to-do list because I'm not always sure exactly what I'm aiming at. And when I think about those days when I was getting exactly where I was aiming, I used to write in a journal, and if you went back and read those, you would find frequent questions of, what am I doing with my life, and what am I going to do next? And did I ever get to an answer? No, because not only was I getting exactly where I was aiming, I thought I was aiming here, but actually wasn't even sure where I was aiming. And so my guess would be if we were to just sort of take stock of our own journeys, we would probably find out that lots of times we're not aiming at much. And even when we are aiming at something, it might be the right thing, and it might get us where we want to go, but then life happens. crises happen, health things happen, relationships fall apart that we didn't expect, and what we thought we were aiming at turns out to be something that we can't get to anyway. So we have this passage from Isaiah that gives us what God is aiming at, and it's a great feast for all peoples where death is no more, mourning and crying and pain are no more. And the hard part is that that promise seems way, way off in the future. We get the same promise repeated in Revelation that there'll be a new heaven and a new earth, and God will make all things new. And again, that seems way, way, way off, right? So if we're back here aiming for that and we're off by just a little bit, we're going to be off by a lot. But the story of Easter is the story of Jesus taking that promise and bringing it close up. So this was the lesson that the old guy taught us at the golf course that day. We thought we just turned and looked that way, we were aiming. He goes, try this. Look at the hole and look at your ball. And imagine that line, and then find something 3 feet in front of your ball that is in line with the hole. Could be a dead patch of grass. It could be a leaf. It could be a shadow. Whatever it is. Then line up and look and aim at that. Now, can you aim 3 feet in front of you? You absolutely can. 3 holes into our day of golf was the first time we'd ever hit the ball where we thought we were aiming. It was amazing. Like, he was genius, right? But what he did was take that far off thing they were aiming at and scoot it close up. And this is what I think Jesus does for us, right? The promises of God seem far off, right? All things being made new, seems like we're not there yet. But Jesus' death and resurrection takes those promises and brings them alive today. And if we look around in the world around us, we do find that things are being made new. When there's great catastrophes in the world, disasters, natural and man-made, we look and see people rising above and helping people out of the struggle and the rubble and taking them to new places. It doesn't mean that suffering goes away, but that God joins us in that suffering, and out of that suffering makes things new. And if we understand that Jesus brings those promises to the present so that they're not just way far off, it is much easier to aim for them, right? We don't have to try and solve world hunger. We should, but that might be too big. But can we feed the hungry person that's right in front of us? We can, right? And we can be kind and generous and gracious to the people that are right in front of us. And it doesn't have to be always a big, humongous, right, undertaking to get to that space. It can just be living the promises of God today where we can. The promise that Jesus comes to bring is reconciliation for the whole creation. Is that our job? I hope not, because Jesus has already done it. But he continues to work in and through us to make that reconciliation happen already now. And so the Easter blessing that we get is to participate in the work that God is doing, to bring grace and love and mercy alive. And it may not always be easy to do that right in front of us, but it is much easier to do that than it is to try to get to the very end and miss where we're aiming because we don't always get it right in the first place. That's actually one way that you can define sin as missing the mark. And what Jesus does for us is, even though we miss the mark, gets us back on track and invites us into that new place of life each and every day. Amen.